Okay, we have a quick bit of notes to discuss. So, first, the midpoint. So, this is for actually calculating the midpoint and getting a number for it. Oftentimes in this class, we'll have midpoints and they'll just be parts of diagrams. But now we're going to actually calculate it. So, two different ways. So, if it's on a number line, it's just the average of those points. So, for example, if this is, 3, and if this is 11, the midpoint is 3 plus 11 over 2, which is 7. But you could have got 7 by just looking and saying 7 is right in the middle, has 4 on each side. Okay, so it's like kind of one-dimensional. Now, if you have the coordinate plane, which is the xy plane with the x-axis and the y-axis, the midpoint is the average of the x's, comma, the average of the y's. So, and the formula is like really intense, but it's not too crazy. So, for example, if we were here at, say, like 0.16, and maybe down here at point like 510, no, let's do 2. We have a line, and there is a midpoint on that line, M. And the way you find it is you just average the x's. So the x's are the first ones. So it'd be like 1 plus 5 over 2. And then the y's would be 6 plus 2 over 2. So the point is just going to be 3, comma 4. And that makes sense that it's 3, comma 4, because 3 is in the middle of 1 and 5, and 4 is in the middle of 2 and 6. Okay, so some more examples here. So in the middle of those two is the number 16, because this would be 6 and 6, right? But if you want to do the calculation, you can see that that formula works fine. Okay, and we could have negative numbers too. So you add them up. And -1 is right in the middle. And just like the other one, in our example above, it's 4 and 4. So it is in the middle. Okay. Now, if you have this, remember this is going to be the x's. So we call those like the first x and the second x, the first y and the second y. The midpoint is the average of the x's and the average of the y's. So the midpoint is at 4, 2, which makes sense because 4 is in the middle of those two numbers, and 2 is in the middle of the other two. Okay, and if we have negatives, it's fine because you just add together the first x's, you add together the next pair. So this is going to be 3 and 1. And you could kind of verify that kind of visually. So like for this one, if we wanted to see it all on the plane, we'd go to -1, 3, which is right here. And then 7 and -1, which is right here. And the midpoint is at 3, 1. Okay. So there's another way you could ask this too, is you could be given the midpoint and be asked about one of the other points. So if this is 0, 10, and this is 3, 6, the question is, how do you get A? And when you have a picture like this, I just like to do this. So you're gonna add 3 and subtract 4 in the direction of that arrow. And because it's in the middle, you do the same thing because the two parts are the same. So all you gotta do is just add 3 to the x and subtract 4 from the y. So the answer for A would be 6, 2. Okay? That's the way I prefer to do this. You could also set up equations and solve. But visually, I think this is a good way to do it. I'll do another example. I'll actually work through the example in the homework with you too. So that way you could have an answer to double check with. So the distance, we actually were kind of doing this before. It's the difference of two numbers. And it's always positive. And this is true all the time in geometry because distance should be a positive value. We can't travel a negative distance. So distance is on a number line is pretty straightforward. Like, for example, you might be able to see right away that this is 12. But the way you would do it technically would be to take the two numbers, subtract them from each other, find the difference. So this would be negative 12, and then make sure your answer is positive. So the absolute value, remember, makes any negatives positive. Okay, so, I mean, real quick, I know the answers here are 20 and 24. I'm doing that visually. I'm imagining it in my head because if 0 is right here, this is going to be 14 and this is going to be 6. So it's 20. Or you can use the formula. Distance, write down the two numbers, put a subtraction sign between them. B minus 24, which is 24. Okay? And let me just get you started on that homework question down here, because I know this question can be kind of hard and you can get lost. So, I would set it up like this. It doesn't really matter how you do the points. You just got to make sure that B is in the middle. And then you want to write down the pattern that you notice. So notice how this path here is the same as this path. So if we just write down how it changes, we should be able to mimic it again and get to C from B. So we're going to add 2 to the x and take away 14 from the y, because 4 minus 14 is negative 10. So if you just repeat these green steps here, you will be able to go from this point to C. So you add 2 to the 1, and you take away another 14 from the negative 10. Okay? See if that makes sense and see if you're able to find C. And once you have C, make sure that this point is in the middle. Okay? That's all I have. This is a short little lesson.